This is the unhaul. Ugh, call it part fall cleaning. It kind of looks like a lot as I hold it up. This pile is partially books that I have recently DNF'd, so I have no reason to keep them. Some of them I've just accepted that I'm not gonna read and it's okay. I can check them out at the library if I change my mind. But this is a good stack to donate to the local little free libraries. And I'm just making room on my shelf for other books, because there will be more appearing, hopefully soon. These first ones are kind of a trilogy. They're quite old. These are the first 3 books in the Shanara series by Terry Brooks. I have the Sword of Shanara. You know, if I hadn't watched an interview with him, I'd never know that it was Shanara and not Shanara. The Sword of Shanara, the Elf Stones of Shanara, and the Wish Song of Shanara. So I found these at a local library book sale. The first and third are very old editions from the 70s and from the 80s. This one's a little newer and it doesn't really look read, and very sadly isn't going to be read by me either because I did DNF the first one. I should have known better to get all 3 before knowing if I liked the first one, but when the books are 50 cents to $1, it's a lot easier to take a risk on them. This series is from the 70s. It's a copy inspiration from The Lord of the Rings. I only got about 70 pages in, and it was enough like The Lord of the Rings to make a very uncomplimentary comparison. To me, it was just too boring, too much like The Lord of the Rings without being as good as The Lord of the Rings to spend my time continuing to read through the series. I would like to think that, like some other Lord of the Rings inspired books, that after the first one it kind of veers off and becomes its own thing. I'm sure that happens, but this first one just didn't do it for me. I'm not going to spend more of my time on this series, so these shall go to someone else who hopefully loves them more than me. Next will be my other couple of DNFs from this year. There's a leaf. Dawn Thief, Book 1 of the Chronicles of the Raven by James Barkley. Incidentally, this one and the next one I got at the same library used book sale as the Shanara books. This one also sat on my shelf for a while. It sounded fun. It has like the Band of Brothers, which is a group of mercenaries that get hired for a job, and it sounded like just a fun adventure kind of book, which I believe it was supposed to be. I can't remember how far I got, but it started with so much action, not enough reason to care about the characters, that again, same kind of thing as the other ones, the Shanara books. I just decided I didn't need to spend my time on it. There's other books that I know I'm going to like better, and I really want to care about characters from the beginning. I didn't realize how much of a character-driven reader I was until I started this channel and started realizing, like, analyzing, why isn't this working for me? Why is it boring? That's one of the reasons. So if you like a fast-paced adventure book, this one might work for you. It has fighting and magic and a dragon and I think like high stakes end of the world kind of thing going on. So it might be worth checking out, just not for me. Bye-bye, Dawn Thief. And then Mistress of Dragons by Margaret Weis. I think Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman are writing a new Dragonlance book right now. Maybe it's already out, I don't remember. They're still writing books. This one is a little bit older, it's like 20 years old. Very just classic style fantasy. The character it starts with is a high priestess, and they guard their area from dragons, but then you find out that the dragons aren't actually who or what you thought they were. This one I read a little farther. I read around 100 pages of this one, and it wasn't horrible. I'm not sure I could give a "this is the reason I stopped reading it" kind of thing. Just kind of felt like it kept going on. I really wasn't sure what the point of what the characters were doing was. It's one of those books where it seemed better in the first chapter, like, oh, this is gonna be good, I'm gonna enjoy this, but it didn't really feel like it went anywhere within those 100 pages. So there's dragons and magic, and if you are a fan of the Dragonlance books, or of Margaret Weis or Tracy Hickman's other works, you might like this, because it will be in that same style that you're used to if you've read them. And then I did read the last chapter of this one because I wanted to see how it ended. And I made a video about that and why I'm glad I didn't spend the time, because the end of the chapter, or the last chapter, the end of the book, is kind of bloody, just weird. I don't know. It wasn't for me. Goodbye, Mistress of Dragons. Next, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Please don't hate me. I actually borrowed this book from my cousin. Not this one. I'm not unhauling someone else's book. But when I read it the first time, I had borrowed it from someone else. And I had only ever heard wonderful things about it. It's supposed to be this amazing storytelling, beautiful prose, amazing characters. And when I read it, I felt like I went through this whole book. When I got to the end, I was like, what was the point of that? What even happened? Was something interesting supposed to happen by the end? It's been a long time since I've read it, so I don't remember very many details. But the main character, Quoth, is like really good at everything. And there's this one magical thing having to do with the wind or something. The name of the wind has to do with the wind or something. Some kind of like magical mystery that he wants to figure out. And because he's good at everything, he expects to be able to be good at everything. Girls like him for some reason. He's a good musician. And then he's the narrator. So later in his life, he's telling someone else the story of his earlier life. And so it's like, how truthful is he being? Was he really this good at everything, or is he just making himself sound good? And then a few little scenes from the present time from him telling the story seemed like, what is the point of these scenes? Is this leading anywhere? I don't know. So I found it used at a little store. It was very cheap. I paid less than $1 for it, and I was like, oh, there's that fantasy book that's so popular. I should have it on my shelf. And it's been taking up room on my shelf, and I don't intend to ever read it again. When I finished it, I didn't have an interest in reading the second one, and then I started seeing all the stuff online about, oh, we're never gonna get the next one anyway. And so now I just don't feel like I need it. I'm unhauling it. It's still in very good condition. Someone's gonna get to a little free library and go, woohoo, The Name of the Wind. So goodbye, Name of the Wind. May you find the fantasy lover for you. These next two are from my backlog that I filmed at the end of 2023, and then I recently made a video for my patrons kind of updating that backlog, and I made the joke that if I could check this out at the library, then why do I need it on my shelf? But then where does that idea stop? Because if I could check any of these out at the library, why do I need them? But this is one that at this point has been on my shelf unread for so long that it's like mocking me at this point. You know, all the memes where you come home with new books and there's all your other books that you haven't read yet just sitting looking at you like, what about us? So I don't need this one. I can check it out from the library. It's like a Indiana Jones style adventure, Under the Sea, The Kingdom Beyond the Waves by Stephen Hunt. I guess I should have said that at first. It sounds like a fun adventure. I've never gotten around to reading it. I am unhauling this. Goodbye. And then a heartbreaking work of Staggering Genius. I was at a book sale. I wasn't finding much that looked interesting. This one looked interesting enough to pick up, so I did. And then again, I have never read it, so I don't even know. I don't know what it's about. It makes itself sound really good. I think it's fiction. It's a Pulitzer Prize finalist, but same thing with a couple of these other ones that if at this point it's been on my shelf for as long as it has been, a couple of years, and I haven't gotten around to it. When I finish a book, I never look at this one and go, I feel like reading that one. So it goes away. Bye-bye. All right, and my last two are Dune Messiah and the Children of Dune. So these are ones that I am unhauling because for Christmas last year, my husband got me the very beautiful, pretty, hardcover, shiny editions. And so why do I need the old paperback ones when I have beautiful shiny ones? I am keeping my old paperback copy of the first Dune book just for nostalgia reasons. I think that's a totally valid reason to keep a book, even though I have the pretty hardcover shiny one. But for these two, there's only so many multiples of books that you need on your shelf, right? I have a couple of The Hobbit, I have a couple of other books that I have multiple copies of. This doesn't need to be one of them. And someone out there is going to go, oh, the next 2 Dune books that I haven't read yet. Yoink. Fun fact, yoink is the opposite of yeet. Even though that pile is still on the floor, it feels really good to have cleaned them out, made some more room, gotten myself ready to collect a few more. Thank you to my patrons and to everyone who watches my videos. I appreciate you, and happy reading. Bye. Bye-bye, books.